Hi out there. Welcome to our AI-Augmented CFO webinar today. I hope everyone's having a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from all over the globe. This webinar is the next in our finance leadership series that you can see is called the AI-Augmented CFO, Turning Finance Data into Strategic Intelligence. Before we begin, I wanted to run through a couple of housekeeping items. First, please feel free to use the questions tab to ask any questions to the team. I'll be monitoring that and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. Second, we will be recording this webinar. So if you couldn't make it or someone on your team isn't there yet, we will share the recording with you after and you can watch again and share with others. With that, I'm looking forward to introducing you all to Ankit Singh, the Anaplan practice leader at Polestar, and Andrew Lawrence, our senior manager at Oatly. Ankit, why don't you take it away?
Perfect. Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. Glad that you guys could make it and join us for this webinar. So today, as the topic suggests, we are going to be walking you through our point of view on the AI augmented CFO. How do you turn your finance data into strategic intelligence? Now, just as for a round of introductions, I lead the Anaplan practice over here at Polestar Analytics. Been with the company for about 6 years, and have been a part of a, a number of finance transformation projects, and off late, a lot of them involve AI augmentation. And the idea is that we want to bring finance, commercial planning, technology leaders, all of them together onto a connected planning platform, but at the same time also help them with the AI adoption as well. And that's something that we do at Polestar Analytics, and then also with Oatly, and being one of our customers. We wanted to have them on the platform, also talk about their experience on their AI adoption journey as well. So with that, I have Andrew with me. Andrew, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, I work at Oatly. I've been here for about 6 years, and we have a variety of data platforms, but the one that I'm really in charge of is Anaplan, and we've been running some Anaplan models since 2021, so for quite a number of years. And I would say, like, with each month, we like find something new to kind of new set of data to unlock, to use in how we're doing our forecasting, how we're evaluating our business. And as Ankit said, AI is really at the forefront of where everyone's headed. And where we see, especially with using Anaplan and other data sources, where we see Anaplan going, and AI going is really the aiding in certain pieces of like interacting with people, and then also with the business intelligence, as Ankit was just saying.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. So as you could probably guess. So what I would be taking you through certain points and certain pillars that we feel are really important for a CFO who's on the path of AI adoption. And we'll also, along the way, take Andrew's view on the same pillars, and see what would work in a customer environment. Now, to quickly talk about what we'll be covering today. So, like I said, the four pillars, as you can see, but obviously to begin with, talk about the shift that's happening within the CFO office. Followed by that, we'll talk about AI in core finance and how it's already embedded in different shapes and forms, depending on the maturity of an organization. With AI adoption within core finance also comes in risk, regulation, and governance. And that's a really, really big pillar of AI adoption. And we'll be talking over that as well. And then the human factor. Obviously, everyone questions the human impact of AI adoption, the reskilling, the change resistance. How do we deal with that? And then finally, connected planning and decision intelligence. How does everything come together with all the platforms that have been there for a while, including Anaplan? And how are they adopting AI, and how there is a sweet point between the platform and AI, and how they can work together. And followed by that, we'll cover a few questions from the audience today. And as Megan said, you could probably share a few of your questions along the way, and we'll be happy to take it towards the end. Perfect. Now, talking more about the frame shift, and the idea is that finance is no longer the team that's really reports anymore, right? It's the team that helps you decide the next play. From a point where the idea of a finance team was barely to report everything that was happening within the organization in terms of numbers, and they were always backward looking. So post your financial closures, you will always get a report which will give you an outlook of how you performed. From that point onwards, they moved towards forecasting, wherein the planning became predictive, and obviously scenario aware as well, wherein you were able to create multiple permutations, combinations of scenarios, but it was still episodic. So what that means is it was based on a prior understanding of individuals creating those scenarios. And then from that point onwards, we want to move towards what we should be doing. That means that we should have a framework that suggests what we should be doing. And that's where decision intelligence comes into picture, wherein AI is synthesizing all the signals and really surfaces with some recommendations rather than you having to create those in the first place. Now, with that, let's jump over to AI in core finance, right? Let's start from where most CFOs are starting. Within the core finance function itself, how are they really embedding AI? Now, talking about, in a way, I feel that AI is already embedded within the CFO ecosystem in one form or the other. Like I mentioned earlier, depending on the maturity of an organization, it could be at different stages. It could be in the form of automation, or it could already be in the form of decision intelligence. For example, you could already embed AI within your ecosystem through anomaly detection or exception analysis, automated closing through checklists and variance flagging. Again, decision intelligence is where the real power of AI is, that it's not just about flagging, but it's also recommendation, where an AI could probably tell you that if you hold this provision, your Q3 covenant could be at risk. But with that comes the last part of it, where for the longest time, we were using AI suggestions, but not really being asked questions to explain it. And that's what's really, really changed of late, where not being able to explain a decision that an AI has suggested is no longer acceptable within the CFO office. Andrew, you want to add anything there?
I mean, I completely agree. It's so easy to kind of just pose a question to an AI model, and for it to come back, snap back with something. And it oftentimes, a lot of energy as opposed to, like, it used to be that you would get a question and then you'd have to try to figure out the answer. And instead now it's you get an answer and you have to verify to make sure that it's right. And I mean, there's definitely steps that can be taken to ensure that the AI is going through the correct steps and looking at the correct data to get the answers that it's kind of searching for. But you can't take anything that it says without, maybe proper citation.
Absolutely. And I think as you can see right at the bottom, the mid-market manufacturer, one of our customers, they were able to cut down their closing cycle from 10 days down to 3 days by connecting ERP planning and operational data using AI. The technology itself was pretty straightforward, but the really hard part was, again, redefining what close really means, right? Are you able to get your final numbers without it being auditable? Or are you spending a lot of time just kind of explaining those as well? So I think that's where AI in core finance is really changing the game. Now, from that point onwards, we move towards the most important pillar, at least I feel so, is risk regulation and governance. Because how do you really make sure that your framework managing AI is really, really able to kind of support the ecosystem that you currently have? So let's talk about what does that really mean. So if your AI model told you to approve some forecast, can you explain why? And that's a question which is becoming more and more evident. So on the right hand side, as you see, what's important today? you should have a model lineage and auditability. You should be able to trace every output back to some kind of data version or logic. Also, be able to identify any kind of bias detection and override protocols as well. So the idea is that you should be able to detect a skew. You should also have human overrides wherever possible, but then the human overrides with a rationale, right? You should not be just giving a pure control to AI to be able to predict, but at the same time, any overrides from individuals should also be there using certain reasons. Now, again, the other part of it is the automation bit, wherein you could have human in the loop checkpoints. So you should have mandatory review gates especially on the high stake decisions that you have. And I think that is where the governance framework becomes really, really important, because the risk is not really having a rogue model that might give you the wrong data. But as we all know, AI has a habit of pleasing. So it might start following your biases as you're kind of asking the questions. So the concern is more of having a finance team that trusts the model too much and stops asking any critical questions. Andrew, if you have any such experiences to share.
Yeah, I mean, I think governance is certainly like a really, really big pillar here because, as you mentioned, there is sometimes a bias on behalf of the models, and they do kind of conform to your point of view. But then on top of that, in terms of like what might the model do to maybe transform data, and ensuring that when it's doing those transformations, that is doing so that like makes sense for the business case that you're looking for, and that it does those types of things every single time that you ask the same question, because it could, there's also context windows, and so if the context window, if it's not in that same sort of thread, then perhaps the AI might answer the question doing something a little bit differently than it did last time, and you might get different results. And so, like, again, the governance part, the repeatability part is really, really important.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that different people in the organization asking the same question should be getting the same answer. And I think that's where the most important part of that auditability and that sanctity of data comes into picture. And something, Andrew, you and I were also discussing the other day was around the fact that all of this is built on a robust data structure, right?
Oh,
And I feel definitely as an organization, you want to make sure your data foundation is strong, whereas everyone likes talking about the fact that AI works really great on unstructured data, but that data itself still needs some sanctity to it. And I think that becomes a part of what you want to do as a part of your governance structure as well.
yeah. I mean, you hear it over and over again, and like when you're talking about like big data sets, and it's garbage in is garbage out, and I mean, yes, you and I were talking about this the other day, but it is ensuring that if there is garbage going in, A, it gets cleaned up, but B, that the AI is not um, rolling that into its view of the data set, because then you'll get all sorts of wonky answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think from the fact that having a governance framework, it's also important to also consider the human factor, right? Also, almost all AI transformation stall because the people itself are not able to accept the transformation. It's not really the technology that stalls it. While you can have all the data foundation that you need, but you still need people to drive the adoption. And this is where we feel that AI adoption is not really a training program problem, but it's more of a career redefinition. It's kind of redefining the role that you have within the organization while utilizing the tools that you have at your disposal. So the first one, for example, is the reskilling imperative. The finance professionals have to move on from being data processors and interpreters to basically driving insights from that point onwards. And that's a redefinition of a role. It's not really so much about reporting what you have, but also driving insights on what's possible. And with that, the resistance is basically rational because a lot of people fear that their roles will become redundant by the very tools that they are adopting at this point. And that's where the leaders within the organizations have to really drive this change because their role definition needs to be redefinition needs to be driven from the top. Also, it's very important that you partner and you don't build everything yourself. AI is a very simple tool. It's really easy to use, but it's also very easy to get wrong. And also, it's quite easy to start making your own versions of everything that you want to do. So, for example, if you're trying to make a financial planning system, five people could end up making their own version of it, which really goes back to the problem that we ran into when Excel came into being. So this is where we feel that always partner strategically with bringing in partners who understand the ecosystem, understand the use case, and are able to kind of also drive the best practices rather than building everything in house. And then finally, the CFO has to sponsor it, right? So leadership sponsorship is probably paramount over here because the idea is over here it's not really a CTO game, right? And this is where a platform like Anaplan really changed it, where the control of the platform was not really lying with the CTO anymore. It was more with the business teams. And this is where even with AI, it takes it one step further. The sponsorship really needs to come from the business users. Andrew, any point of view from your end?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk on a number of these. One, the reskilling imperative. I think like two pieces there. One, um, if you look at the journey that we've taken with AI, even in the last few years, it's been like crazy. And I think everybody's job is in the go. It's not like about how you implement the AI. It's like, how do you implement AI now? And how will you implement AI
Yeah.
in 6 months? Because it's going to be different. Like at the beginning or the end of last year to right now, I mean, it's absolutely wild the advances that have been made in AI. And yes, so we're gonna always have to be kind of like reimagining who we are, redefining ourselves to continue to adjust to how AI is improving and how we might implement it in our businesses and use cases. Resistance is rational for sure. But like I think the mindset needs to be kind of like flipped there, in terms of like it's not about what we're doing and like just kind of like providing the same level of service and quality of data that we're doing right now, doing so with like less people or like more efficiently. It really needs to be about how you raise the bar on um, the services that you're providing to your own team. I mean, for us, we're in CPG. We're talking about like two other layers of we're talking about retailers and operators, and then the end user consumer. Like, how are we able to provide them with more value at the end of the day using AI? And then, partner, don't build everything in the bottom left corner here. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of it too. Like, it's so easy. I saw this really crazy graph from the Financial Times a few days ago, and it showed the amount of vibe coded websites or websites that have kind of come into existence. And because of vibe coding, it's really shot up at the end part of 2025 and into 2026. But the issue is that, there was also the amount goes up this way, but the usage is not going up that way. Everybody's able to kind of create all of this really, really wonderful stuff. And Ankit, as you said, there's no reason to like necessarily reinvent the wheel. I think at this point, it's like being thoughtful in your execution, what you're creating, ensuring that you're getting buy-in, and then that you're getting adoption, and that you're not like moving too fast because as opposed to just kind of like creating, it's also like creating and implementing and then refining, and then sort of making it more of a circle instead of just like a straight trajectory somewhere. And then yeah, finally,
Absolutely.
CFO must sponsor it because I mean, it's interesting in our company. The certainly the finance department is getting to use some of these like AI models, and I'm on the finance department first because and some of the privileges first because of the amount of data that we have, and the impacts that we can then help to make financially.
Absolutely, and I also feel in terms of people feeling scared that they would be redundant. I think of it in a different way. For example, let's talk about your planning process, wherein what if your CFO tomorrow were to ask, like, let's say you've got 5 layers of product hierarchy, and your CFO says, "What if we were to introduce a sixth level right in the middle? Would that improve our forecasting accuracy if we could categorize our products in a certain manner?" Something that would probably take a couple of months to do, right? In order to get the right numbers. And if you were able to kind of deliver that to back to your CFO within a matter of a week or so, that is how you augment your value rather than thinking that this technology, which you thought was going to make you redundant, is actually increasing your value by decreasing the turnaround time for different things that you could probably do.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's part of it, Ankin, and then the other part is like I think just like as humans, like we and certainly like a lot of the stuff that we've done at Oatly or that stuff like regular processes in the CPG business, for mid-sized companies, like you take a lot of signals and you just like toss it because you might not see the utility in having it. And what AI kind of allows you to do is maybe bring in a lot more signals, a lot more data, and then see if you can actually find the patterns there. So again, like back to what I was trying to say earlier, like how can you increase the value
yeah.
of what we're doing as opposed to just kind of doing the same thing with less or being more efficient? It's like, well, how can we do more? Like, what else can we do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that kind of, leads to a proper segue on, while you want to be doing more, how could you still maintain connected planning while also driving decision intelligence? Because the technology already exists. It is the organizational muscle which acts as a constraint, because as new technology comes, it is within our mindset to start thinking anything older becomes obsolete. And I think that's the part where we really want to, change over here, because the idea is you don't really want to think about connected planning as a single platform. You really want to think of connected planning as a single version of the truth, which gets updated continuously. So the idea is, again, you might want your plans to update more frequently with the onset of something like AI, rather than monthly, which you used to do earlier. Could you be running scenarios in real time, right? And I was thinking of this example the other day. Could it be that I could have an anomaly within my sales, which really is then highlighting any impact. So, for example, let's say I get a spike in my sales, and that really it triggers the system to run a reforecast, which then triggers the system to find out inventory, and then triggers to find out any impact that would have on my budget. All of that being done even before I log into the system. And the system is really running these scenario simulations in real time and is able to give me suggestions. The idea also is to be able to see the downstream impact even before you're deciding it. Again, like we were mentioning earlier, the system is now giving you suggestions of scenarios where your job is to make decisions rather than sitting down and creating those scenarios, and then also be able to track the outcomes against these predictions that you're making by creating all of these scenarios in real time as well. So the maturity curve for any organization, like we spoke right at the beginning, is going to be moving from the reporting to the forecasting to the decision intelligence. And the idea is that we want organizations to get onto this bandwagon of faster decision cycles, in some cases up to 30 to 40%, along with higher forecast accuracy, right? And then the idea is that for you to be able to experience truly connected planning across the organization in less than 1.5 years. And when we say truly connected planning, that means finance, supply chain, HR, commercial, everyone coming on board, which in earlier scenarios could take up to 4 to 5 years. Right. And I think that's where the real power of having AI along with a connected planning platform like Anaplan really comes to the forefront. Andrew, any points from you?
No, I'm in quite a bit of agreement with you on this one, Ankit. Certainly, like um, you know, always there has to be like a bit of governance on it. But yes, with the AI suggesting things, and then back to like an earlier point you made, like keeping the human in the loop. It's making the suggestions. You can outline it to also defend why it's making the decisions that it's making, and then you can then ultimately, be the decider there, and be in control as opposed to just sort of like letting it run wild. But yeah, I think this is great.
Mhm. Absolutely. Perfect. So, kind of bringing the whole conversation together, and really five key things you want to take back to your finance team. The idea is that you should be chasing decision intelligence and not just automation. That's where the maturity curve with AI really lies. And while you're doing that, make governance a design principle. The idea is that governance should is not supposed to be bolted on. It's supposed to be built in while you're building your AI framework. And then lead the people change yourself. Don't leave the reskilling part to somebody else. If it's your process, you should be helping with the change management firsthand. Then finally, building one version of the truth, like we just spoke of, connected planning across functions and updating it continuously as well. And that will really help you move up the maturity curve, starting from what happened to actually moving towards what you should be doing, and then really driving towards decision intelligence. I think that's what we have had today. But Andrew, any final thoughts from your end?
And kind of back to an earlier point, I mean, for me in particular and for Oatly, I think that, again, it's like, how can we deliver better service to like our internal teams, external teams, um, external partners? And then, it really allows you to bring in way more signals than what you may be bringing in right now, and adding so much more to really thicken the soup that you're kind of working with. And maybe you just couldn't find the patterns before, but maybe they're really there. There's all different
Mm.
ways to connect different pieces of data together now, in a way that we've never seen before, and it's really really exciting. But as Ankit said, that it all needs to come back to one source of the truth. I think that's where, certainly with connected planning, that's where we always have tried to get, is like, yes, this one source of truth is the same source of truth across the organization. Building that process, and always, kind of coming back to that as a center point.
I think one point I really want to reiterate for the audience today is the fact that you mentioned right up front is that with AI, it really becomes easier for you to stop missing any signals that you might have while you're creating your scenarios, while you're creating your plans. It's quite easy to miss that one single data point. Even though you finish your calculations, your numbers tie up, your calculations tie up, but you miss that one key data point that could have impacted your complete decision. And with AI, you stop doing that altogether. And I think that's where you really need to leverage a system that's really looking at everything all the time and helping you drive through decision intelligence. I think with that, we'll move towards Q&A, and yeah,
Yes,
happy to take any
team.
questions.
Yes, and we're actually at time, so I'm going to send those questions to both of you right after the webinar, and so you can follow up directly. You covered one of them right in your recap, so that was excellent. So everyone on the call, we're going to close up and stay on time. Thank you for joining us. We will send the recording after this within 24 hours. Thank you for presenting and sharing your insights on all of this information. With that, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Perfect. Thanks,
Thanks,
Megan.
everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.